are you eating nose to tail? There's a big difference between a carnivore eating just muscle meat versus including the organs and the different nutrition they're going to get.
You may or may not like this answer. So I buy my cows from local farmers, and like I am not into wasting. That's like I don't know where I got it at, but I think it's also good. Like so, yeah, I get the cow, I eat the whole thing that I get. I wouldn't say it's nose to tail because I mean they don't give me the brain because of regulations, but everything I get, I eat. Uh, that said, I'm strongly considering not eating liver anymore. And we could talk about that if maybe this is probably the time to talk about that. But yeah, so I do eat kind of nose to tail, but I'm considering not eating at least significantly. It's not that I was even eating a lot of liver, but I just think the more I kind of dive into the vitamin A thing, it's like vitamin A is obviously an important vitamin. I'm not in the camp where it says we should totally avoid vitamin A. There is a camp out there that says that. But the amount that you get in liver is a lot. And if you're eating that a lot every day, and you're eating eggs, which is high in vitamin A, and you're eating dairy, for example, also high in vitamin A, you're getting a lot of vitamin A. And this goes back to our discussion around fat soluble vitamins is like these work synergistically. So if you're getting plenty of vitamin D and you're getting plenty of vitamin K, eating more liver is probably all right. But if you're not, I have serious kind of hesitations now of high dose vitamin A chronically ingested.
Talk more about that. Why would vitamin A become an issue? At what point? What specifically is it doing? And then talk more about that camp of people that are totally avoiding it. What's the thinking there?
Yes. So vitamin A is a fat soluble vitamin. And so, unlike vitamin C, for example, or B vitamins, which are water soluble, you will just basically take a lot of those, you'll urinate them out. These fat soluble vitamins are stored in fat, so you can accumulate them. And so, and this is why the question about vitamin D, I'm hesitant when people are taking huge doses of vitamin D for long periods of time. It's a fat soluble vitamin, so it can bioaccumulate. Vitamin A is a similar story, and liver is super high in vitamin A. And this is not like carrots or sweet potatoes that have vitamin A. That's a plant version of vitamin A, which is not even super bioavailable. But liver is retinol, vitamin A that we like. It matches our biology, and we absorb it very efficiently. Uh, and its liver is very high in vitamin A. So if you eat liver every day, day in and day out, you can bioaccumulate vitamin A. So you're storing it, and if you're not getting adequate amounts of other fat soluble vitamins, it can cause an imbalance of these fat soluble vitamins. And so my hypothesis kind of is, and I was trying to look, I've recently looked deeper and into this, is if you are, the reason I was looking into this is back to our ancestral perspective. And I was just never satisfied with, eat liver if you like it, XYZ. If you don't like it, don't eat it. And I look at these cultures where, especially the work with Dr. Weston A. Price, who's a dentist, we can definitely talk more about his work as well. But one thing I noticed is he would talk about tribes that really, treasured liver. And people like the Hadza in Africa, it's known that they kind of like treasure liver as well. But then you look at like these Arctic explorers, for example, who are known to throw the liver to the dogs. And I'm like, is liver supposed to be treasured or trashed? There's a dish called humble pie, and it got its name because they would put like the liver and the organs and serve it to the peasants, like it was peasant food. And so I'm like, there's all these like cultural anecdotes of like liver being treasured and prized, and like this is a superfood, and the other ones like we're throwing this to the dogs and the peasants. And I'm always like this, I'm like, what is going on here? And the more I kind of looked into these stories, I'm like, I see this association with um, geography. So the Hadza, for example, they're under an African sun all day long. They have high amounts of vitamin D potential, whereas the Arctic explorers are in the Arctic where they're getting less sun. And so I'm like, maybe this aversion or prize to liver, it has to do with like where they live, like and how much sun they're getting and how much vitamin D they're having to either increase the need for vitamin A or at least the tolerance to potential vitamin A toxicity. So that's a working hypothesis I have right now. I've done the research I can. I haven't seen other people talk about like, hey, eat liver if you're like in Africa or you're in the sun or you're getting lots of sun exposure, or if you're taking vitamin D supplements. But if you're not doing those things, maybe like eating liver is just not a good idea. Maybe you should save that for your dog. So there is a camp of people that are just, they think vitamin A is like the cause of all human disease, and so I'm not that extreme. But I do think there should be maybe some more cautious and definitely more research into this area of thinking like, especially like a lot of people saying livers is health, like superfood. So more is better, more is better, more is better, and more is better tends to be a dangerous statement in nutrition. Uh, so that's just kind of my thoughts about vitamin A. Whereas I'm cautiously kind of limiting it. And if I am eating it, I'm going to make sure it's maybe in the summer when I'm getting lots of vitamin D and not like in the winter when my vitamin D levels were low. And so eating liver could potentially have a more, toxic effect.
And does this vitamin A piece translate to other organs as well? I know liver is specifically very high in vitamin A, but expand out to other organs you're either consuming or not, and whether vitamin A is an issue there.
I do not believe it. Liver is going to be the main source of vitamin A because that's where the body's going to store it. So, like, if you have like a vitamin A toxicity, unfortunately, the one way to confirm that is a liver biopsy. Right? That's very invasive. So, there's a lot that's not known about this. I read one study though that said it looked at cadavers, and it was like something like 1/3 of the cadavers had potential toxic levels of vitamin A storage in their liver. I was like, whoa, that's like super interesting. Um, but the other organs, no, I don't believe it to be very high. Like muscle meat, very low in vitamin A. So liver is going to be the main source of vitamin A. Other organs that I eat would be heart, which I think is fantastic. It has a little bit more diverse nutrient profile than muscle meat. Like you'll get things like CoQ10 in it, other nutrients as well. Like I'll eat the heart. I try to think of like the tongue. A lot of the organs that there's when they say nose to tail, you're a lot of times you're talking liver, heart, maybe kidneys. If you my farmer's never given me the kidneys.
What about bone marrow?
Bone marrow is fantastic. I love it. It's like called the butter of the gods for a reason. Uh, it's more like very high monounsaturated fat. So, which I think is totally fine for people with like fat loss goals. I'd be like, hey, let's just use caution. I prefer saturated fats, more saturated fats. But yeah, bone marrow is fantastic.
I've heard of people eating testes. Is that something you've tried?
No, I have not. So I've not. If you get a cow from a local farmer, a lot of times some of these more exotic organs and body parts do not come with it. I think you got to request those, especially. And there's a lot of regulations around some of them, like the brain. I said because I'd like to try cow brain, but because of various risk and regulations, haven't had that.
And why this becomes even more important, this conversation about organs, specifically liver, in today's world, is the supplement world in this realm seems to have really exploded, where you can get different organs that have been desiccated in capsule form, and you can take them daily for prolonged periods of time. So we need to, especially given that, because before, if it was a mammoth or a cow and we were just eating the animal, there would be a limited supply of these organs. But if now we have access to continue to go to Amazon and click and get 6 bottles delivered to our front door, we really need to know what we're doing with the nutrients in that concentrated form.
Absolutely, 100% agree. The one thing that I'll say, like a benefit of these supplements would be most people don't eat a very good diet. And so we're kind of maybe a lot of the listeners were probably more fringe in the fact that we actually eat a healthy diet. Like the standard population is just not. And so taking a desiccated organ supplement is going to give you nutrients that they're probably not getting, and it's probably net beneficial. In the context of like eating a healthy diet, I think it's superfluous. So with that caveat aside, yeah, I'm not a big supplement person, but for a deficient diet, like it's smart for a vegan to take a vitamin B12 supplement. And so that kind of analogy expands. And if you're eating a standard American diet, there's likely you're deficient in various vitamins and minerals. And so taking supplements is probably has a net positive effect. Although the research on multivitamins is woefully, um, how do I say, terrible. Like when it comes to mortality risk, it's like you take a vitamin, it doesn't help.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
We take those 300,000 years, we put them on a 24-hour clock. The first 23 hours, we don't see cavities in the fossil record. We don't see periodontal disease in the fossil record. We don't see malocclusion in the fossil record. We don't really see abscesses in the fossil record. But something happens 1 hour.